Ahio was Uzzah's brother. While they were moving the Ark of the Covenant on a cart pulled by oxen from their father's house to Jerusalem, the oxen stumbled, the ark shifted, Uzzah put his hand on it to steady it, and he died. Ahio had been leading the cart in front of the oxen. He did not die, if only because he wasn't within arm's reach of the ark. But did he see his brother die? When the oxen stumbled, did he turn to check on the ark and feel relief at the sight of his brother steadying it? And what, if anything, did he see next? A bolt of lightning from the heavens? Not likely. That seems like a detail that would have been included. But the account does make it seem like it was obvious to everyone what had happened to Uzzah. He didn't just die. God killed him. And everyone knew it. And I wonder if Ahio saw it. But does it matter? Because either way, his brother was dead, and Ahio was not only left alone guiding the cart that carried the reason for his brother's death, Ahio was left alone without a brother for the rest of his life. And his brother didn't just die, God killed him. And at the time, everyone knew it. But Ahio would never be able to forget it. Do you know what survivor's guilt is? I mean, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a feeling that you've done something wrong by not dying in some tragic or traumatic event. Not just a feeling, a whole mental condition in which a person believes that they should not be alive, that having survived a tragedy is some kind of moral failing on their part, that they don't deserve to live. Ahio's case seems like the perfect recipe for survivor's guilt. He and his brother were guiding the cart together when the Ark of the Covenant shouldn't have been on a cart at all. He could just as easily have been the one next to the cart instead of in front of it. He probably hadn't done anything wrong. The oxen probably stumbled on their own, but you probably would have had a hard time convincing him of that. And for the rest of his life, his brother would always have been killed by God himself, and he would not have been. But he easily could have been. And he easily could have believed that he should have been. I bet that 9 out of 10 people read this story and wonder whether or not God should have killed Uzzah. Ahio could easily have been the 1 out of 10 who wondered whether or not God should have killed Ahio too. That's how easily we misunderstand guilt. We are so bad at assigning the right amount to the right people, especially when the guilty person in question is ourself. We are so quick to assign ourselves much more or much less guilt than we actually have. On the one hand, we deserve so much more than we think. We are so much more guilty. Like, God killed Uzzah for a sin, and technically speaking, God kills everyone for their sin. No one survives sin. Not even Jesus. And he didn't sin at all. He just took on our guilt. And he suffered hell, which is how much guilt we all deserve. But we are so bad at recognizing that. Or should I say that we are so good at not recognizing it. We are so good at dismissing most of our guilt and operating under the false assumption that we are mostly good people. At least better than most. Certainly better than someone bad enough to be killed by God himself. And on the other hand, something happens near us, not to us. Ahio didn't die, Uzzah did. But he could have so easily felt immense guilt over it. Guilt that was not his to feel. And we all do it. Even as we very capably dismiss so much of our guilt, we can just as capably take on so much more than we can bear. And we blame ourselves for tragedies, disasters, and trauma that we ourselves have suffered. We lie awake at night, not worrying about the actual guilt that is ours and somehow still dwelling on the imaginary guilt that we've invented for ourselves. We blame ourselves for things that God does, even as we fail to blame ourselves for what we've done to offend God. Ahio's brother died while they were guiding a cart bearing the Ark of the Covenant, the visible representation of God's promise to be with his people and be their God if they would only obey his commandments. And Ahio's brother died because they hadn't known or had ignored God's commandments regarding transport of the ark. And Ahio probably felt the wrong amount of guilt about that, because that's what people do. We all feel the wrong amount of guilt. So did Jesus. And he didn't sin at all. He just took on our guilt, and God killed him. He suffered hell under the guilt that was not his, under the precise amount of guilt that is ours. The right amount for us was the wrong amount for him because it was any at all. And that was right. In God's eyes, we are right with the wrong amount of righteousness because it is any at all. It's not ours. It's Jesus. God gets guilt right. And the way he does that is Jesus. And we'll probably never get it right. We'll probably always feel both too much and too little guilt until God kills us and brings us home to be guilt-free because of Jesus. You and I are dust and breath, loved by God, bought by Jesus. This podcast is written and produced by me, Ethan Cherney, a WELS pastor serving Our Savior Lutheran Church in Pomona, California. Get in touch on Facebook at Dust and Breath Pod, on Twitter at Dust Breath Pod, or by emailing dustandbreathpod@gmail.com. Outro music arranged and performed by Mr. Peter Shawy, who is like silver purified in a crucible. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you could leave a review in iTunes or just share an episode on social media, I'd really appreciate it. It's the only way other people can find the show. Now, go do what God made you to do. Be who God called you to be. Go see what God can do with dust and breath and faith in Jesus, his Son.